start with that unbelievable game yesterday. Like, I mean, sorry to start with you, Paul, but what a win for Cork. Like, I mean, it has to be said. This is a team that threw away a 6-point lead against Limerick 2 years ago and came out in extra time and lost the extra time.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, they threw away a 6-point lead, a goal, devastating goal, last kind of shot of the game.
Yeah.
And to be turned over. Like, I mean, what character they showed. And, like, I mean, I don't want to, like, oversell this, but that's a massive win for Cork.
Yeah, it's huge. And like you said, from the character point of view, it's the big thing. You know, we all know the Cork players have the hurling and, you know, they have the skill, they have the fitness, but it's the character. And the game ebbed and flowed. You know, Kilkenny actually got the better start and took off. And I was kind of looking at it from a Kilkenny point of view. I was thinking, this is a good start from Kilkenny. They're going to push on. Kilkenny even kind of half threatened for a goal or so. And I was thinking, right, they might get a goal here. But Cork came back into the game and then Cork pushed out into the lead. And like you said, once that goal came at the end, I was thinking, right, the momentum is with Kilkenny. Because all the Cork players hit the ground and the hands were on their heads. And, you know, understandably, it was just such a blow at that stage, last puck of the game. But for them to come out in extra time and do what they did, the character they had was just, I mean, they have to be commended for it. Because I think a lot of people would have jumped on them straight away and would say, typical Cork. But it's not. You know, they're a much better team than what we've traditionally seen with the character over the last few years. And for the steel of them to come out and do that, I mean, they deserve huge credit. It was a brilliant performance.
It's often said, Damien, that the team, you know, that gets the late equaliser, you know, have their tails up and stuff like that for the extra time. It didn't, like, when I looked down at the pitch, like, the stadium was in shock, Damien. Patrick Horgan, after missing that 65, and it was a terrible effort at it. And he dropped down to his knees, and I was thinking to myself, Jesus, how will they recover from this? And they absolutely did.
Yeah, it was a sucker punch. Being straight up with you, like, it was nearly a case, lads, watching it, that Cork didn't need everything to try lose the game. Do you know? But no, I'd say myself, they got a sucker punch. Mullen got an unbelievable goal. Pádraig Welsh, unbelievable pass. Mullen put it to the left hand side of the goalkeeper, which, Colin, I've often said to you, is the opposite side to his where his boss of the goalie hurl was, right? But yeah, I'd love to know what was said inside in that Cork dressing room at the end of the match, because Kingston and his management team had to get the boys, regroup them and get them to believe again. And the truth of it is, I think myself that if there was another 10 minutes left in that Cork game at the end, Cork were willing to stay running. Their fitness levels are incredible. So they are. And the Jack O'Connor goal in the extra time was a real sucker punch for Kilkenny and Brian Cody. So it was. And I really enjoyed watching Cork hurling yesterday. I thought they took on Kilkenny the way they don't like to be taken on. So they deserve to be in the All-Ireland. They deserve their credit, so they do. And there'll be no pushover either for Limerick.
No, they probably won't. What would they have said in that half-time, or at the end of the match, Paul? Because The Rock said that the players took over.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking a very natural kind of, you know, motivation would be, now's the test. Is this like, I mean, your character has been tested. You know what happened 2 years ago. This is a huge turning point for this team.
Yeah, like, first of all, they had the proof to say, look, we were 6 points ahead. 63 minutes gone.
Playing better.
You know, we were on top. This is back on us. This is back on the team. And I'd say they probably would have, I could be wrong, but if I was the management, I'd be saying, lads, Shane Kingston came on the 42nd minute and I think he got 5 points, was it, in the normal time? I'd be saying, look, lads, forwards, that's, you know, if he can do that, you should go. Because the forwards in the extra time, Jack O'Connor and these lads, they were unbelievable. And the confidence of them, they got 3 or 4 points, even when Declan Dalton came on in extra time, from out on the sideline, near the 65, and as soon as they struck it, I was in the Hogan stand, I was going straight over the bar. There was near confidence about them, but like you said, I think it was maybe the history coming back and saying, listen, we can relive that, or we can go out in the second half here, 2 sets of 10 minutes, leave everything on the pitch, and lads, you know, what have we got? We're going to be in an All-Ireland final, that's the play. And like, the fact that they had, I think, the extra time, that it wasn't going to replay the following week, you know, that they had this momentum, go, right lads, it's in front of us now, get back out there and win it. Whatever they said, it worked, and their attitude was exceptional then in extra time.
It was, and Tim O'Mahony was excellent in extra time, Damien. Like, I mean, he deserves an awful lot of credit, because look, there's 2 parts of me saying, Jesus, Tim O'Mahony, get it down the field, but then if you got it down the field and gave away the possession, you might be giving out. It's hard to be too critical of him. You'd give James Bergen the huge credit for not giving up and chasing him down when that game was over, and like, that's Kilkenny. Yeah. And then he tried to buy himself a yard and tap it off the ground, and then it went to Pádraig Walsh into Mullen and a goal. Like, I mean, it's incredible stuff. But Tim O'Mahony never let his head drop it. He was outstanding in extra time, Damien, and that says an awful lot probably about his character as well.
Yeah, well, look at, Colin, they've trained so long and they've trained so hard, they were probably saying to themselves that they're not just going to throw in the towel. Like this. And Tim O'Mahony, look, he was coming out with the ball. He should have thrown out. I think if you go back into the game, you'll see that he should have thrown out the hand pass, a simple hand pass that Kingston was outside. But look, he didn't. And as you said, the Kilkenny lads took it back off him, and Pádraig Welch gave the brilliant pass into Mullen, and it was a goal. But look, it was character that was needed, and it was lads that had to be defined in the Cork setup to say, look, lads, enough is enough. We have to put our stamp on this game, and we'll absolutely give it everything. And it's gas. Certain things happen in games, that can often benefit a player, right? But Cork brought on Cadigan and brought him on corner forward. And when he was coming on, I said to myself, geez, I hope your man, Jack O'Connor, isn't taken off now, because he hadn't got going at this stage. And by Cadigan coming in corner forward, it let Jack O'Connor go out wing forward. And when he went to wing forward, oh my God, he opened up Croke Park. So even his first point out the field was like a defiance to say, I'm not going to be taken off today. It was as simple as that. And a rake of the Cork players thundered into the game. Once again, you had Patrick Horgan, 15 points from play, 6 from play. And then you had Kingston having to drop his own son, right? And maybe he didn't want to drop him. Maybe they have a thing in their management that it goes in a vote like this. But Jays, when Kingston came on, he put down some mark. Kilkenny just didn't like them running at them. But all I have to say is, even all the Cork subs that come on, right? They absolutely tore into the game. There was no settling down period. And I'll be honest, I was delighted for Cork. I was delighted they got their chance and they're in Croke Park now. I think it'll be a good All-Ireland.
Yeah, it was heroic stuff, really. In the extra time, you'd have to say from Cork, like Robert Downey dispossessing TJ, the crowd go mad. Have a problem with the Kilkenny crowd. We might as well have been in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It was a home game from Cork. It must have been 70 or 80% of Cork there.
You have a problem that they were too quiet, was it?
Too quiet, or gave up tickets? Or it was just kind of quiet. Do you think it didn't sound 50-50?
When the Adrian Mullen goal went in, I didn't think there was only a few Kilkenny people there. But no,
maybe they need more of a spark. Cork seemed to be, even though it was a draw, Cork seemed to be much louder. Would that be fair?
No, certainly the Cork crowd were really there, and they were really behind. Every little flick of a ball. And like you said, when Robert Downey came out, and he really grew into the game, which was a huge thing. He could fully go in there and say, right, I'm going to go mark TJ and just keep the ball off him, but he didn't. And a huge part of what I thought Robert Downey, he lifted the players further up the pitch. There was one Puckout came down and he caught it, and like you said, the Cork crowd stood up once he did it. He popped it out back into position, but the dispossession was a huge one. That was at a real vital time. And players were tired, and he just came out, stuck to him, saw the ball, flicked it out, and TJ went the other direction, and he came out, and that was a huge lift. And sometimes backs do things that is the equivalent of a forward down the other end getting a point or a goal. That was a huge thing, because he was just saying, I'm dominating my position. I'm dominating it here. I'm doing everything I can. It's down to you down the far end. And it was nearly kind of a coming of age for Robert Downey, because there was a few, at different times, as much as any player, there was a few questions here and there, but he stood up yesterday and he was enormous. And probably just because Shane Kingston scored what he scored, I think Robert Downey was man of the match really after that, just out of his heroics. I thought what he did in the full back.
And Mark Coleman in extra time, he dropped Walter Walsh with a shoulder, which I couldn't believe. Walter Walsh coming in the sideline, I'd say he was more than happy to meet Coleman with the shoulder, and he fell, and then he flicked it away from him for a goal chance. I'm thinking of the kind of heroics. Tim O'Mahony, just kind of all action hero
Yeah, and that's it. And I'd always be saying to lads, never underestimate the power of that, the flick, the dispossession, that someone's running through a goal and you just dispossess them and the momentum turns. You're after killing their attack, and they did that. But it was also the fact that they were working hard enough to do it. They were running back, they were filtering back towards players, and there was a few blocks. Adrian Mullen went for a goal. Can't remember who was it that came back across. I think it could have been Downey again. Came across, and Adrian turned back inside, and he just got the flick and flicked it away, and Cork went back on the attack again. So all those small things, they added up to an enormous kind of, I suppose, momentum for Cork.
Yeah, and there was some brilliant, I think Hugh Lawler had an unbelievable block on, I think it was Cadigan as well. And Owen Murphy, obviously, I'm going to ask you about Owen Murphy's performance, Damien, because Paul says he's the greatest goalkeeper who's ever played the game. Getting
not biased.
But some of his saves, like the save from the O'Connor goal chance, it was such a good save, you didn't even see the save.
Yeah, he's a brilliant goalie. And Colin, actually, you and I discussed this, I'd say last year, how good of a goalkeeper he is. And he, Paul, you might be able to enlighten us in this. Is it true he plays outfield for his club?
Yeah, he's never played in goal. I've never seen him tug out in goal for Glenmore.
Yeah, because he comes across as such a natural hurling player playing in goals. He's nearly like a sweeper back there, and he's striking left and right. He's an unbelievable goalie. There's without question. he deserves all the plaudits. And I'd say the discipline he has to his game is incredible, between puckouts and shot blocking and his first touch and his striking is everything. But I just have just one question, right? I don't want to be coming across Colin with the questions, but how did he end up in goals for Kilkenny if he plays outfield for his club? Was it a case that you were taking shots one day and next thing Brian Cody seen and next thing was, geez, he's a good shot blocker, we'll throw him in goals?
No, I think it's actually a funny story, and it's a one you'd nearly even tell young lads to, I suppose, as a motivation. Like, lads look at Owen Murphy now and they think, incredible goalkeeper. He's played there his whole life. He's harnesses and all that. He plays outfield for Glenmore. He's on the freeze. He plays centre forward, midfield. He's an outfield player. But Owen, hopefully forgive me for saying this, in under 14, Tony Forrestal didn't make the team. I don't know if he made the panel. Under 16, same again, didn't make the team, didn't make the panel. And I think made a conscious decision that, you know what, I could really make a good stab at going on the goal here, and maybe I could get on the team.
Right.
Now, and again, Owen might correct me on this, but I remember seeing him when I was younger. He was outside. He would have been a year or two younger than me.
So he's a good club hurler, but he's not good enough to get on the county
Just
panel.
missed it. There was great players coming through, and the positions he was going for at the time, there was lads competing in those positions, and maybe just didn't get to look in. And he went on to the goal then for Intercounty, still playing outfield with the club. And he came to minor and he won a minor All-Ireland on the goal. I think it was 2008 it might have bbeen. He won a minor All-Ireland on the goal. But it was just the thing that he focused on the goal and said, this is what I'm going to do. And when I saw him coming in, he was sub-keeper to David Hegarty for a while. But when he come into training, he'd be the first lad out in the pitch and he'd be putting pressure on Hegarty, saying, we should do this, we should do that, we should be doing these drills, we should be doing those. And coming up with creative ideas for different scenarios. And, when we were down one end doing drills, Owen Murphy and Hegarty be up the other end, and to see the drills that they were doing, literally, someone at one side taking a shot, you'd save it, sprint to the far side, you'd have to save the next, and it was back and forth, and it was this idea that, how hard can we work? And he brought this professionalism to it, and probably something that other people wouldn't have seen, but that's the kind of anomaly of it. He's out the field for Denmore, but just made this decision, I'm going in the goal, minor, under 21, this is how I'm going to stick my nose in for Kilkenny.
Right, very good. And he seems to have the Jack O'Connor goal chance. You wouldn't see it in real time that he got a hurl on that, and then the Cadogan one, the Alan Cadogan one, where he saved it and it popped up and he was able to catch it. Yeah. One fault of his, like, you're tweeting he's the greatest goalkeeper of all time. Does he go route one too often? There was one stage TJ Reid was in midfield and someone else completely free. I think Kilkenny might have got a point off it. So but I think I was reading between the 60th minute and the 67th minute, he went long with 6 puckouts and they lost all 6 of them. Okay,
yeah. Definitely, there's an argument there that he could be going long. What I would say with that, and I'd be critical more so of outfield players, like if I was, let's say, when I was trying to give myself an option for Owen Murphy, if he wasn't giving it to me or he wasn't giving it to someone else, I would say the options weren't given to him out the field. Like, when we're sitting in the stand and we look down, some of them might seem like clear-cut options and some might be there and he mightn't see them. But, if he had 6 long ones there, I'd be kind of saying at least the forwards should be winning at least 1 or 2 of them. If they don't win 6 of them, that can't be back on him.
When the momentum's going against you, don't keep doing the same thing.
Well, also, don't keep doing the same things. But if we're talking about him in the light of other generations, other goalkeepers, this wasn't an argument for other goalkeepers. The long puck out was the options. Well, but I suppose we're gone down to it so far now that we're critical of too much of the short puck outs, or we're critical too much of the long puckouts, and now keepers have to have it. But certainly, look, maybe it's a legacy issue from Kilkenny that, over the last few years, transitioning into when the pressure's on, don't be striking the long ball. Maybe that was a small bit of a legacy issue. It's hard to know, but look, I didn't see that they did a huge amount wrong in those times with the long puckouts.
Right. What do you think about Kilkenny in general, Damien? Because, they go through the lines and they do play it around fairly well, but when the pressure comes on them, they go route one a good bit still. Would that be fair?
Yeah, they definitely do. And look, they were getting a little bit of, I suppose, they were getting a little bit of progress and benefit out of it at the start. But I thought they needed to get, more their key players on the ball like this. And when I say their key players, I'd have to probably say more the Ballyhale players like this. And when it came, they put themselves under tremendous amount of pressure. I think, was it something like Cork scored 7 points to 1, or it was something like this in the third period, as we call it. Like, they put themselves under and sometimes I think Kilkenny do awful amount of long range shooting, and sometimes they score and sometimes they don't. I know Tip have a bit of a fault in that regard as well, but I never like to see them bringing back on players that are after taking off. Does that mean that their panel isn't as strong as they would like it to be? And I know it happened a good bit. Cork did a bit of it as well, so did I thought Walsh came on there, so he didn't. He went in solo with a couple of balls, and I thought maybe he should just tap him over the bar stages. Yet Richie Hogan, I still have this question mark about Richie Hogan. Like, he was only good enough to come on for the last bit of extra time, and next thing he scores a point, he gets onto a few balls. Is he not good enough to be? I don't know. Kilkenny were hit and miss this year, even though, as I said to my wife yesterday, that like as disappointed as Kilkenny be this year, they won the Leinster and they won the league. Like, but you wouldn't be happy with that. Like, you'd have been disappointed to beat Cork.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Well, tell us about Richie Hogan then, because I was talking to someone coming home in the car yesterday, and they were saying it's just a joke. It's a joke, and I was like, we don't know. He's got fierce injury problems. Is that feeding into it? Because to me, looking at that, going, how is he only getting? If the game didn't go to extra time, he wouldn't have got on at all.
This was it. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at it, and I was saying this game is made for Richie Hogan.
Has he been right?
40. Has he been right in what?
Injury-wise, like, has he been fit?
He's been carrying a few knocks here and there, but he is fit, and he's been fit for the last few weeks, and he wouldn't be on the bench if he wasn't fit, or at least able to play half an hour, 40 minutes or whatever. But I was saying this game is made for Richie Hogan to come on. The ball wasn't sticking in the forward line. Richie would bring something different, whereas I suppose lads were playing fairly standard inside in the full forward line. They were playing their positions, where you saw when Richie came on, he was coming out, he was asking questions kind of similar to what Patrick Horgan was doing. He was attacking the ball out in front, balls were breaking, got it, and he was electric when he came on, but for 10 minutes of extra time. To be honest, I don't think that's fair on a player. If he wants to make an impact, give him enough time to make an impact. And as Damien said there, Mossy Keown came on at half time, 59th minute was taken off, brought back on. I
think he was taken off again, was he?
He could have been, yeah. And I was there going, this is made for Richie Hogan to come on. I know I'm a club man of his, but I think a lot of people were saying it. I could hear people in the crowd around me going, because he warmed up, he put the helmet on, whoever they were looking to put him on for must have got a point, and Richie went back up into the stand then with the helmet on, sitting there, jersey on, ready to go. And I was thinking, no, if they have to put him on here soon, don't wait till the game is gone and hope that Richie's going to do against Galway, or like what he did against Galway in the Leinster final last year. And
because Paul, what I was thinking was, right, you had your man corner forward there, Alan Murphy, right? And look, I've played corner forward before, and like, he'd only a point scored like this. And I was just saying, like, we were watching the match at home, we were here like this, is Richie Hogan togged here? Like, the next thing we seen him come out with the tunnel, so we did. And like, I was saying, like, would he not have been a better option there? I'm only just giving an example. And next thing when he came on, he drove a wide, he scored a point, he gave a pass. He actually looked quite lively. So
I think what you're guaranteed with him is that he's going to get on the ball, which I think Kilkenny needed. For that alone, they needed him on to get on the ball. But again, I suppose hindsight is a great thing, and maybe there's a bit of bias in me being a clubman of Richie. But I think, I was chatting to people afterwards, and like you were saying, people were asking, if he's fit, why isn't he on the pitch? Because it was clear Kilkenny needed something a small bit different, and where Cork were willing to do it. Cork brought on the players that they felt at the time, we have to bring him on. And it was, a few weeks ago we were talking about the selection, how Kilkenny used the bench against Wexford. I think Cork used it much better yesterday, and they really, I suppose, showed faith in the players. Get on, Declan Dalton coming on and getting a few points, and I think that was a big difference that we're probably not talking about.
Obviously the change in the game was Kingston and Cadogan coming on. So Kingston came on in the 42nd minute because Kilkenny had started the second half well again, and Cadogan came on in the 47th minute. And Damien, you've obviously referenced this. So Cadogan came on in the corner. Jack O'Connor went out to the wing and he ran a muck out in the wing, and he looks a much better option out there because he can skin lads, and he doesn't have to run into dead alleys. And the big thing about Shane Kingston is, from me watching it, is he occupied Pádraig Walsh, and Pádraig Walsh couldn't sweep. Kilkenny had no sweeper really in the second half. It looked like Cork played all their forwards in the forwards. Who would have thought it, Damien? Imagine this earth-breaking realisation that if you play six forwards up there, the other team doesn't have a sweeper.
Exactly, and like Pádraig Walsh was doing a sweeper for Kilkenny in the first half. Even though, as I said, Patrick Horgan was going to town, so he was right. But as I said, Cadogan came on, Jack O'Connor came out to wing forward, so he did right. And I know this from being a corner forward. Like, Jack O'Connor, in my opinion, right, he's the fastest hurler in Ireland at the moment, without question. Puts the ball in the hurl. He starts soling. His whole body's moving, head, shoulders, legs, everything. He's absolutely going 100 miles an hour, right? But the whole thing is, Colin, you can be the fastest player you want, but sometimes the ball isn't coming into the full forward line. And when he got released out to wing forward, it was like a new lease of life. He was allowed to go on to breaks. He was able to call for balls like this, and that made a huge difference. And Cadogan came in corner forward, even though Tommy Walsh actually had quite a good game on Cadogan at cornerback like this, but Cadogan scored 3 points and could have scored a goal. And like Jack O'Connor isn't the finished article. When he went through and he pulled off that great save from Murphy, he actually should have laid off the hand pass into Patrick Horgan that time, and it would have definitely been a goal. So there's, and Cork could have scored a couple of more goals, and we know we're after saying about the Murphy, the Kilkenny goalie, the great saves, but like if they did get them a few goals or even got one or two of them before, but it would have been a different story. But Cork were willing to run at Kilkenny, and the more they ran at them, the more problems they caused them. Simple as that.
There was a point in the second half, Paul, where it was really falling away from Kilkenny. Cork were on fire, and there was, like I said, there was no covering player. There was beautiful ball going in, like the Jack O'Connor goal chance. That was just a ball bounced in front of Cadigan, a layoff. They were playing beautiful hurling, weren't they? And like you were at the game, Sims. I couldn't believe it in the first half. Patrick Horgan was standing inside on the edge of the square on his own. Yeah. And there was nobody inside the 45. Barrett and Jack O'Connor could have been on the 45 and everyone else is back. And Cork ripped up that script and changed and just fucking played their forwards up there. Yeah. And stopped trying to copy other teams. They reminded me of Waterford in the first half, the way they were kind of set up.
Yeah, they did. And as you saw, Kilkenny did get the better start. And like you said, their tactics were a small bit negative. But then once they pushed up, like I thought bringing on Alan Cadigan, when I saw him coming on.
Oh, he was fired up, wasn't he?
He was fired up. And what's more, if I've marked Alan Cadigan a few times, and I've great time for Alan Cadigan because he brings this electricity to that Cork forward line. And when he hurls well, he's capable of serious things on a pitch, and I suppose it just shows how competitive the Cork forward line is at the moment, and it's what they need. To really reach an All-Ireland, you need it to be competitive and lads pushing for positions. But when he came on, he went straight in and he hit Tommy Walsh a dunt, and I said, if I was a back, and that's the worst thing you hate seeing, a cornerback, you've been out on your feet, running around after a lad for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and Alan Cadigan comes on, and he's mad for it, and he's mad for road. So I was thinking that was a great selection out of him, because now suddenly you're alert, okay, Patrick Horgan's inside, but now you have Jack O'Connor out the field making these runs straight through. You can't take your eye off Alan Cadigan, who's there. And one of the things then that it also allowed to free up was you could see then Shane Kingston started making runs in behind, and he was just pointing out to the way. So the space opened up for the Cork forwards then big time, and it opened up also because there was danger all over the place. Kilkenny were just smelling danger everywhere, no matter where you looked. And I really do think that bringing out of Jack O'Connor, that was something I didn't see coming. And the impact he had when he got out there, I think we were talking here last week of he probably had to add another string to his bow. This was it, because now we're looking at him going, he can now run from deep. Not just like Damien was saying, be starved inside in the full forward line. Instead, start out around half forwards, maybe get a point, but also you're now sprinting through the middle. And he did it twice, and he got one goal and one great save, which any other day probably would have been a goal. So just the danger everywhere in the forward line with Cork was the huge difference in the second half.
That was the huge thing, and Kilkenny not being able to get any cover, and there was just, Cork were just on fire. We were talking about Jack O'Connor without overdoing this, because we've talked about it the last two shows, is that when he's in corner forward, he seems to go around the outside and come in the end line, Damien, and the end line is almost like an extra defender. I was thinking Kilkenny will close that down, and Tommy Walsh did very well on him, but from wing forward, that pace. Is it because Conor Callan went into midfield as well? There was a few different changes because Fitzgibbon came off. But Jack O'Connor, when he doesn't have that end line as an extra defender, is like, Jesus, how do we deal with this fella?
I like him as a hurler. I like the way he gets the ball. But you have to remember, when he's playing in the full forward line column, the ace man in the full forward line is Patrick Horgan. So like it's kind of like when lads might be getting the ball and they're looking for Horgan like this. Now I know Horgan got 5 points to play, but it can get very frustrating as a corner forward. You're inside, you're at the top of your game, you're sharp, you're fit, you're lively, everything, and the ball isn't coming to inbound. And when you get out the field, it's like a new lease of life. And I just wrote down here, like Kingston, Cadigan and Jack O'Connor, 113 from play. That's what the three boys scored, 113 from play, and 2 of them were subs. So one came in and got 7 from play, and Cadigan came in and got 3 from play. Like that's unbelievable shooting. And I also just wrote down here, Mark Coleman. I believe this Cork team, Mark Coleman and Robert Downey, 2 real central players, but Mark Coleman, I think he's nearly like orchestrating the whole thing. He plays centre back. He's not a typical centre back. I reckon he uses a 31 inch hurl. I'd love to know the size of his hurl. It's absolutely tiny. And he's able to strike the ball left and right all over the field, and he's finding players. Luke Mead is another lad orchestrating everything. Beautiful touches, doesn't go in for any big hits, whatever. But I think Cork have a very, very good forward line. Sometimes they overdo, but as you said, Colin, there, it was like in the second half, they just threw all the ties out of the pram and goes, lads, let's go back 6 forwards in orthodox position and let's go for it. And they went for it. And They deserve their place in the All-Ireland.
And that's the thing. And all the Cork 6 forwards have to be marked. That's why it was so hard in the second half to free up somebody, right? So, like, I mean, on the other side, Mark Bowman played right half back, but he was sweeping in the middle because Mellerick followed TJ Reid. That was the early change. But Coleman was able to sweep because he let Mossy Keown off. Or he let John Donnelly off. And the ball was going off over John Donnelly's head. I felt sorry for him because Richie Reid took a shot which he should have given to him in the first half. Do you remember? And put it wide. And then Donnelly gets kind of, hooked off. But it was just the whole, when you've got 6 dangerous forwards, every team's playing the same way now. They're dropping back their centre back sweeping, and it's messing. Sometimes you're under so much pressure out the field, you just want to get it in, and you don't have to get it in perfect. But when there's a covering player, he nearly always comes out with the ball.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And I suppose the fact that the Cork forward line, you had 6 dangerous forwards and they pushed them right up, it didn't allow Kilkenny to impose their game because the backs were so preoccupied with their own men. And, something I saw, Patrick Horgan, like, again, we probably talked about a lot of players, but Patrick Horgan won his own ball. But not only did he win his own ball, he was scrapping then for other balls. He got a few, let's say, points from balls that just broke down. Other players were running through. He just pulled away, let the other player run through. Ball broke down, and I was thinking about there, was it in the first half? Got a ball, simple ball over the bar, and he was doing everything. He was putting over the frees that needed to be put over. Let's say bar the last 65. He was winning his own ball.
15 points he got.
Yeah. I mean, it was just outstanding, and I think that really anchored that forward line. I mean, he contributed 15 points, regardless from frees or from play, and you had that, like, so you had your standard, I suppose, as we expected now. Patrick Horgan, danger threat in front of goal, and he had a brilliant game, absolutely brilliant game. And then the likes of the other lads around him then just brought their own game to it. I mean, they were playing different styles, but he anchored them there. Yeah.
Paul, would you be, if you were you Laura, would you have been annoyed that he didn't get a little bit more cover from his teammates in the defence, that so much ball was going into Horgan, especially in the first half, and it came 5 points from play? Like as a defender, I know all these top defenders, you're like us forwards, you're counting how many frees you give away, you're counting how many block downs, you're keeping your man scoreless, and next thing all of a sudden, Hugh Lawler's running in at half time and he's nodding his head and he's going, lads, I need support. He's after getting 5 points to play. Like, would you have said Pádraig Walsh wasn't as much as a support as he should have been, and he was a sweeper?
Yeah, there was times there where I looked and I could see, that the Kilkenny half backline were up towards the 65, and oftentimes the way the game has gone now, if that happens, your half backline's up towards the 65, that means the other team is implementing their game on you. And I could see Hugh Lawler was coming out and he was 2 or 3 yards behind Patrick Horgan, more so out of necessity, because he had so much space in front of him. Cork were able to get the head up and look in and land the ball in front of him. And if you were able to land the ball in front, bouncing in front of the full forward, straight away I'd be saying your half back line is too far off the pitch here. If this is happening consistently, and Patrick Horgan loves that. That's what he does. He drifts, and he's great speed. Drifts out, gets it. And once he has it in hand, he has such balance that he just throws a little shimmy, has the yard. And I felt sorry for Hugh Lawler at times, because I was going, what can he do? Like Damien is saying there, he wasn't being protected. So I was going, what can he do? I mean, it's a case the half back line are too far up here. We need to pull it back a small bit, and because Patrick Horgan will score all day if you let him off.
That's the thing. And then the half forward were running.
And Colin, what happens there, right? So you have Hugh Lawler playing full back, and you have Patrick Horgan playing full forward, and the 2 corner forwards are going out the field a bit, right? And next thing, the perfect ball is hit into Horgan, and we all know his first touch. It's absolutely perfect. It's immaculate, right? So now Hugh Lawler has to make 2 conscious decisions. Is he going to commit himself, right? If he commits himself and Patrick Horgan gets the ball, he can snip him and get a goal, right? Or he lets him off. The worst case scenario is he gets a point. You don't want to concede a goal. Or if Patrick Horgan takes him on and he takes him down, it's 1-on-1, he gets sent off. So these are the scenarios, the game plan system. So I just thought myself that Pádraig Walsh, even though he had a fine game, he should have been helping out more in that regard to Lawler, because Horgan had 5 points from play scores.
Yeah, he found it hard in the second half, obviously, because Kingston came on, and I think Kingston was predominantly in on Pádraig Walsh, but then they kept swapping around. Whoever was close to someone, they'd pick them up, because the Cork lads were just moving around so much. But they all played well. Yeah. Robbie O'Flynn was fantastic the whole game, running at Kilkenny, even when Cork weren't going well. And then Jack O'Connor, Kingston, Hegarty came into it. One thing I'd say about Cork, they kind of start celebrating there when they went to 6 points up. And I saw even at the second water break, Kingston kind of clapped them all into the huddle, and they were fired up. Yeah. And then Hegarty was celebrating points, Cadigan was celebrating points, and then all of a sudden Kilkenny get 4 in a row, and now the celebrations ended, and they started,
Yeah, exactly. And the killing thing was, even when Patrick Horgan hit the last 65 wide, I said it to myself at the time, I said, if he put that over, the game was over at that
yeah.
stage, because you couldn't turn around. It'd be very slim chance of turning around and getting 1-1 there, at least just to draw it. But I said there's an opening here for Kilkenny, and I actually kind of half of me said, I hope it doesn't fall back on Patrick Horgan like that in some ways. Not leaving my Kilkenny roots here, but I said it'd be a pity if it did. But I said, this is made for a goal here now. It's still the 3 points.
Why did he miss that? Like, I mean, there's something written here. Like, why would he have... And he missed it so badly.
And it could be come back to a small bit, like you're saying, like they were celebrating. I'm not saying they got carried away, but, you know, maybe they thought, we've done enough here, we've done enough. You've never done enough until the final whistle is blown. Because, as you saw, Cork were 6 points behind at one stage. Kilkenny were 6 points behind at one stage. 6 points in a game is in a hurling game is nothing. Never mind 3. I think especially at that stage, you knew Kilkenny were going down the other end for a goal. So I was just saying, we have a chance here. We have a chance. Now, little did I know, or did I think that we're going to get a goal. I thought there's a chance here, but maybe they just took their foot off the gas a little bit, and it's something for them looking going forward. I mean, nobody will be taking their foot off the gas if they have any sort of lead against Limerick, but you can't afford to do it, to take your foot off the gas.
No, you wonder, do you give Kilkenny the credit for the comeback there? Do you think they took the foot off the gas? They were definitely noticeably celebrating scores, but then again, it looked, Damien, like they were running away with it. You know, and the crowd were getting into it, and I don't know, maybe, do you think they took their foot off the gas, or do you think that you just give Kilkenny the credit for, you know, sticking in there?
I give Kilkenny the credit. I think Kilkenny are never gone away. And that's just one of Brian Cody's mantras, that you hurl for the full length of the game and you give it everything. And when you're out there, like, you know, it wasn't the case that the lad took the foot off the pedal or anything like that. And like Kilkenny just basically, they tried harder. Simple as that. And they won their 50-50 balls and they got back into the game. So they did. And one thing I'd love to know is Brian Cody seemed a little bit upset at the very end of the match, whether he felt that Paddy Deegan was entitled to a free. Or do you remember at the very end, Paul? So I seen him going out towards the ref. I don't know what he said to him at the end of the match, but I suppose if Kilkenny won it, geez, it would have been nearly like a rob.
Yeah.
But no,
they were never getting that free.
That's the question.
No.
What?
They were never getting that free.
Yeah, I think the whistle was blown.
Yeah.
But it looked like that. But Brian Cody went out and he said something to the referee, and he wasn't happy with him over something. But no, I think Cork deserves a win.
Oh, they definitely did. I don't think anyone would doubt that. How does Cody get away with being in the pitch? He doesn't respect his technical area, does he? He's right in the pitch. Nobody says a dicky bird to him.
He only marginally walks. So I suppose if the only thing you're giving out about is that he's stepping over the white line, I think you'll nearly take that, because I suppose over the line he's had good battles down the years with different managers over the years. But to be honest, I didn't really notice what was going on too much on the line. I didn't actually see him going in. I think when the goal went in, from being in the stand, lads were just looking at each other going, geez, we got out of here, and lads were running down, lads were going outside to, lads were going out for a cigarette, or lads were going to the toilet and come back in. It was mayhem at the final whistle.
The atmosphere was so weird though, wasn't it, Paul? Like, I mean, everyone was in shock. It was just little small conversations happening all over. The whole stadium was kind of quiet, but except for just the murmurings of what the fucking hell is after happening.
And what was gas was everybody was kind of turning to each other. I think the Cork fans were saying, oh no, have we thrown it away? And the Kilkenny fans, anyone I met, lads were going, will we do it? That was basically it. Will we do it? They'll do it. And again, it goes back to it. Lads were saying, they'll bring on Richie Hogan. We'll do this, we'll do that. And people just thought, I think the Cork fans might have said, I hope this isn't, we didn't just throw this away. But it was a strange feeling, because I think some people as well were figuring out, was it extra time or was it going to be a replay or whatever? But no, it was. There was kind of this apprehension at full time of what's going to happen next. Yeah,
it was just non-stop. So performance of the weekend, lads. Like, I mean, Shane Kingston has to win it. There's no two ways about it. Like, I mean, you're dropped. Yeah. I played underage for Portlaoise and I have my father on as a leash selector, and I haven't been on teams. It's not a nice atmosphere at home in the house. Like, there's no doubt about that. Like, I mean, you don't want to talk about it, but you'd like to kind of talk about it. And I know exactly, like Shane Kingston, there would have been tension in that house. There had to have been. Like, I mean, no player wants to be dropped. Now, in fairness to him, he talked about accepting it. He said, I kind of knew at the start of the week I wasn't going to be playing. I don't mind. But look, when I got the chance, I just came on. I wanted to prove it. Hopefully, I'll be playing again the next day. The one worry I'd have for Shane Kingston is the impact he made off the bench. That there might be a kind of a move to say this could be a good role for him. You know, like. Then the traditional side of it is if you perform like that, Damien, you get on the next day. You know, but that's not really always the way they look at it, managers now.
I'd say it was an awkward week now in the Kingston house. Being honest, I'd say, and you know, he was hurling well. Lads can say if they like. It wasn't a case that he was playing on the forward line for Cork because his father was the manager and he wasn't getting scores or he wasn't pulling his weight. He was pulling his weight and he was getting scores and he was getting goals and points as well. So it was, but you just wouldn't know. I was saying this is home. You just wouldn't know. Maybe they went for a vote, among the management team to say who will they play, and maybe Kingston was outvoted by his son. But all I'll say is, when you're not happy with something like not getting picked, there's only one way to show them, and that's to show them on the pitch. And the performance that Kingston gave, like 7 points from play, lads, is extraordinary. If Tony Kelly scored 7 points from play, if Patrick Horgan, TJ Reid, we'd all still be talking about it next week. 7 points from play in inter-county hurling is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And score 5 points, 5 points from when he came on, and it was nearly like, like you're a spoiled child and you're after coming on and you're not, and you give the fingers up to the management. That's what you deserve now for not starting. It's a little bit like that. And I personally was delighted for him. And I was probably delighted for his father. And you were on about clapping lads across the head there, Colin. Like, he would over his own young lads.
Yeah.
So did
He hit
Kingston.
him
Give him a clatter across the helmet. It was there like to say, you show us wrong now. You proved yourself to us. But without question, I thought the man was just simply outstanding.
Yeah. I saw the tap, the hit he gave to the son, but that was more like, it was a fairly out hit the helmet, but it was in a well done kind of way rather than get into, because he does he flatter
but there was a defiance.
Yeah,
there was a defiance to that clap.
There was. Does he flatter to deceive sometimes, Paul? Like, can you see the problem with, and I've seen this on many teams, when there's young lads coming up through the ranks, there's a huge clamour to give these young lads a start.
Yeah.
And it came down to between himself and young Barrett.
Yeah.
And, they've just won an under-21. This is the future, and I could see why they dropped them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. Look, they had hard decisions to make, and I thought about it going away. And, I was thinking to myself, how hard of a decision was it for Kieran Kingston? Because, look, it's not a nice place to be in. And I think the performance of the weekend goes to both Kingstons, Shane and Kieran, because at some stage, regardless if it goes to a vote or whatever, Kieran Kingston has to take out of it. And he obviously did take out of it. Look, that's my son on the pitch, or won't be on the pitch. And he said, listen, the best team has to play what's in the best interest of Cork. This is what I think, right or wrong, is in the best interest. And the buck stops with him. The buck stops with Kieran Kingston. And the integrity of Kieran Kingston to do that, I think, is admirable. But also the character of Shane Kingston to come on and not sulk. Come on and score. And as Damien said, 7 points. Incredible. Incredible in 70 minutes of hurling. I couldn't get over
in 42 minutes.
On the 42nd minute, I went home and watched the Sunday game, and someone said to me on the way home, we're going home for a pint, and someone said he came on after 42. I said, no, he didn't. He said he came on after. I said, there's no way Shane Kingston came on. But I think overall, the integrity of Kieran Kingston, incredible. And the character of Shane Kingston to come on. Forget the scores and everything else. The character of him to come on and do his bit and, really lift the Cork team. Overall, I just think it's just incredible what they did.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Other nominations, Robert Downey, absolutely outstanding. You'd have to say Billy Ryan would get a nomination as well, Paul. That was a lovely little move, I thought, by Cody to put him. And we were talking last Thursday, Cody's very good at putting players in, and he saw the damage Ronan Hayes maybe did, running left and right. And when Billy Ryan got the ball, he caused Downey all sorts of problems. And that's why you get a little bit frustrated that Robert Downey loved the kind of balls that Kilkenny ended up kind of giving in. Yeah,
well, when you saw what Billy Ryan was doing in the first half, he was really asking questions, and he was moving around, and then you're kind of thinking, if that's working, well, let's not step away from it. If it's not broke, don't fix it, And then even also, I suppose, Billy Ryan, you could see he was cramping up at different stages then towards the end, but there's players there that would have provided similar enough to what Billy Ryan was doing, as opposed to standing TJ on the edge with Robert Downey, which maybe Robert Downey wanted to do. If Billy Ryan's tactic was working of moving, get another player in there that's going to do that. If Billy Ryan is now cramping, get him in there. But, Billy Ryan did have a good game, and he was lively inside there.
Yeah, no, he definitely was. Jack O'Connor, obviously.
He got 5 points from play.
Yeah, he got 5 from play. Patrick Horgan, Robbie O'Flynn, who was outstanding. You'd have to say you could nominate loads of the Cork players. Tim O'Mahony, absolutely brilliant. But performance of the weekend goes to Shane Kingston. We'll have to leave that match there, lads, and we'll come back and talk about the other one. So the only place to start with this game, lads, is that the fact the game was put back for 30 minutes, and there's a lot to be talking about. We could do the rest of the show on this decision and what happened. But Darragh Donovan, I thought, was interesting. He was speaking after the game. He says, I think the 30-minute delay probably affected both teams. Players should be put first in that instance. 4 points to 3 in an All-Ireland semi-final after 18 minutes. It affected both teams. It's very unfair, and it's just as unfair on Waterford. I was stuck in that traffic, Paul, so I was purely thinking I saw all the flags, Limerick flags coming out of the cars, and the traffic wasn't moving from a little bit after Munster until before Naas. And I was thinking, this game has to be put back, or people who have spent whatever on the tickets won't get in to see. So you're just out of an inter-county panel. Like, which way do you look on it? Like, I know from being a player in Croke Park, you hate that delay. It's desperate. You're nearly out, and then you're not. So I can see if, but surely they had to put it back, no?
No, they had to put it back. You know, I think Darragh Donovan, I know what he's saying, but like at the end of the day, the fans have to be there. We haven't had fans in London. If ever, more than ever, they were going to put it back by half an hour. The fans had to be there for this. And there's many circumstances in which a game has been put back, and I've been involved in them, be it extra time in a game previous. You know, you're playing down in Semple Stadium, All-Ireland quarter-final. You know, two teams.
It's heartbreaking though, isn't it?
It is heartbreaking, but it's part of the game. It's as much part of the game as walking around behind Darren Tabenby's band to try and keep your focus, as much as you meet the president, as much as you're, you know, all these different things that go on before a match, you know. So you have to prepare for those things. And I do know what he's saying in it, but I mean, you couldn't start the match. It would have been an absolute debacle now if you started the match and fans, through no fault of their own, couldn't get into the match after paying their money, you know, and they see half the match, or they see 15 minutes of the match, you know. You couldn't do it. I think, in fairness, at the time, Darragh Donovan was looking at it from players' point of view. He wanted to get out on the pitch, adrenaline was going, but you couldn't. No, the right decision was made, and fair play to him for making the decision.
Well, that was it. 5:26 I got into the ground, Damien, and I was like stuck in that. There's no way it could have made 5. You're looking at losing a half an hour for supporters. What I want to know from you, because you're a very, very strong farming background, what kind of a gobshite of a farmer doesn't know how high he can load the straw into the back of a feckin' lorry?
Well, they're saying he was a Waterford farmer. So he was.
I think a meme has gone around with every kind of a fella driving it, from John Milan to Liam Sheedy to there's every lad has been accused of it. So
could you just imagine?
But Damien, no, just to stick on the bales of straw, how would they have made that mistake though? They're driving on a motorway with several bridges. Surely there's that's a huge mistake by someone.
Yeah, well, I'm not an expert on straw or an expert on straw bales.
Silage is your forte, is it?
Yeah. I'd be more. We as a family would be more into square bales of hay because we'd love hardship, right? But I thought there was a rule within that you couldn't go 3 rows high,
right?
As in to stack them three rows high. I thought that, but as I said, I'm not an expert. I don't want to start speaking about stacking of bales, but lads, it must be a pure misfortune. And all I'll say is, right, and anyone that's a farmer and their father is the main man and the father's son, right? Well, I hope it was the father that was driving the tractor and not the father's son, because and every farmer's young lad will know what I'm on about, because. Or he didn't go and he loaded the bales himself and he forgot about the 3 rows higher or whatever. But it was just a pure misfortune. Like, you know, you wouldn't write it, you know, if this happened, so you wouldn't. But as I said, you'd feel sorry. But I would agree with Paul. You had to put the game back half an hour for the fans and for the players. Look at, even at home, we were all looking forward to the game, and we got delayed watching it. We see on TV and you're mad, and RTE and everyone else were trying to just prolong it and talk about everything, but the game had to be put back half an hour. It was as simple as that.
Yeah, they had to punch in some time for the half hour to pull poor Anthony Daly out of the stand with a hoodie on him, and he was getting all sorts of stick.
Yeah, he was, yeah. I was only thinking to myself as we're talking there, if anyone tuned into this podcast halfway through thinking it's the GA or they think it was the Farmers Journal podcast, what's the regulations behind stacking hay or straw?
Listen, Damien loves a farming chat. If you get him started, you could do the whole hour.
It's the only way you get him on. Promise him a bit of farming talk.
Paul, you take the likes of Kyle Hayes. He comes from farming background, and they speak about his fitness levels. A lot of that is agricultural fitness as well.
Yeah,
so it is. So.
Well, we used to have Noel Hickey, you know, and when gym programs were coming Noel Hickey would always say, "Sure, what use am I to a gym program? Am I pulling cows out of the ground all day? So what's the use, you know?" Well,
that's it. But I was even like with Noel Hickey, or even lads on building sites, that on your day's recovery, they have no recovery.
There's no recovery. I saw a great interview at the time with Kieran MacDonald of Mayo. I didn't know he was a builder.
Pipes. He lays pipes on roads.
Was it pipes? Yeah, and he was out. He was saying, you know, he was mixing cement and he was pulling blocks or he's pipe, whatever. And he was saying, sure, you know, recovery, like you said, whatever about a gym, you wouldn't worry about a fella having to do a gym program there. But like you said, the recovery. What recovery? You're going down into a hole at 7 o'clock in the morning, like, you know. So certainly for those lads, I don't know, is it going out of the game or is it still in there? I'm sure certainly it is in there for a lot of lads, but it's recovery, non-existent there.
Yeah.
So there's not too many inter-county GA stars are doing manual labour.
They're all selling cars now, Damien.
What?
They're all selling cars now.
So they're all majority of them, if they have a choice and they're big into their hurling and they think they have a big. This is just my opinion. A lot of them go down the teaching route.
They are. Yeah, they are. They are. The whole summer off. Come here. Would you mind telling me why you're still on the square bales instead of the round ones?
Oh, there's nothing. I'd say a square bale is terribly valuable. Very, very, very handy.
What's the difference?
Column. You can throw a square bale of hay into a van or a car, and so you can, and you know, for a couple of calves or a couple of ewes there to have lambs. Oh, the square bale is terribly valuable. Very, very valuable.
Right, and it's just a handiness.
Yes, the square. This is hilarious. This is yeah, the handiness of the square bale of hay is fierce handy for if you're feeding calves or you've ewes dropping. So there's and in a round bale, maybe you know yourself. They say there's 10 square bales in a round bale. You mightn't have known that, but yeah, it's a lot more work to it and a lot more hardship to it. But square bales of hay are terribly handy, so they can last a lot longer. But it's mainly for calves and ewes and that.
Right,
so
right. Well, it's definitely round.
Great.
Go on.
It's great that we're talking about square bales of hay now and round straw bales.
Well, it was definitely round straw bales that man had on the back of the lorry because I drove past it. Come here, we have to get back to the match. What about this sending off the Peter Casey one, Paul? Like, I mean, video footage inconclusive.
Yeah, I've looked at it a few times. It's a tough one. The part of it, sure. I mean, there's a load of different angles to this. Like he went in, was it a chest bump? I didn't see him overly sticking the head in. If he did, he did stick the head in a bit.
Gleason went down, so there's momentum bring him on.
Yeah,
you know?
Gleason went down, but also as well, the Peter Casey went down. I was thinking, is it guilt that he's going down?
Guilt,
like, you know, but I felt hard done by because the first thing I thought, and I thought about it in the first few minutes, you know, Peter Casey was sent off. Jamie Barron stayed on the pitch, which I thought was. I mean, I've been a big advocate of Jamie Barron, but Jamie Barron punched Gerard Hegarty in the stomach. That wasn't as bad as what Peter Casey did, you know. So, you know, in trying to weigh things up, you're meant to deal with these things on individual case-by-case situations. It's tough on Peter Casey. He was playing with fire. We've talked about it plenty of times. He was playing with fire, and you can't go and say, let's say, okay, Aaron Gillan got away with it a few weeks ago or whatever, or even saying Jamie Barron. Referees look at it case-by-case, and he sent him off. There was something there, and I don't think there can be a huge amount of argument. But again, Jamie Barron. Do you say that Jamie Barron in front of the referee should have stayed on the pitch?
He's just kind of a forearm rather than an actual
punt. You know, but at the same time, you could say, well, did Peter Casey? Well, he didn't land the headbutt. He pushed, but he didn't land it. You know, are we getting into that sort of argument now? But look, he'll feel like he's missing an All Ireland either way. I don't know. Are they putting in? You know, are they going to contest it or what they're going to do? But it doesn't look great because there's no real conclusive angles of it. It's a tough one for anyone to call. I think it's 50-50, you know.
He'll hardly get off when the video doesn't show that he didn't do it. And then the ref decided he did. Like, I don't know, Damien. Like, explain to me, like, you often see soccer players going head to head, right? And one of them, the minute they feel the contact, they'll feckin' fall on the ground. And, you know, like, there's nothing in that. It's play acting, it's theatrical. Now, hurlers have helmets and face guards. You tell me how that could have hurt Conor Gleeson. It couldn't have. You tell me what benefit is there in Peter Casey putting his helmet into Conor Gleeson when it would hurt him as much as Conor Gleeson. It would hurt neither of them. So what's going on here? Like, I've never really seen it. A headbutt is a waste of time on a hurling pitch with a face guard and helmet.
I understand you, but I look at things from both sides, Colin, right? And Peter Casey, the corner forward, and I'm probably on the corner forward club here. So I'm like, he's a lovely hurler. He with 2 points from play scored. He's after nailing his place on the team. He's keeping Mulcahy out of the team. It's Graham Mulcahy like this. But like Gleason went toward him. I'd love to. Something happened that Peter Casey reacted like that. Where did I don't know, right? But when Gleason went towards him, did he hit him somewhere that wasn't a nice place to hit him? And
I think he poked him with a hurl.
Yeah, but there's a corner forward doesn't react like that, like this. And I'm going to defend Peter Casey, and I genuinely felt really, really sorry for the young lad in Croke Park. I even when they went in to show him in the stand, I could see his eyes were watery. Like I didn't like it because I don't believe corner forwards react like that for no known reason. I think something happened in that instant, whether a hurl went somewhere that it shouldn't have went or whatever. Look at Peter Casey will be annoyed with himself and that he probably went towards him with the head, but like he didn't hit him a headbutt.
No,
I think
no.
Gleason reacted terribly. Like, you know, no more than you're on about Jamie Barron's belt on Hegarty. Being honest with you, there's old school hurlers that if they got that belt that Hegarty got, they wouldn't go down. They wouldn't. Hegarty, I was a bit disappointed Hegarty went down in that regard, you know, for a hurler of the year like this. But I felt sorry for Peter Casey. I would love to see the decision being overturned for his sake. Do I think it will? More likely it won't. But there has to be a reason why Peter Casey went back to have a confrontation with him. Something happened, and you don't respond like that if nothing happens.
No.
There's two sides to everything.
There's two sides to everything, and it's come into the game though, and I think Gleeson definitely went down too quick, because if he hadn't gone down there, those two players would have had their faces in against each other, and that would have been the end of it, Paul. Like, I mean, in that regard, it's unfair on Casey. The other side of it is how stupid is Casey to even think of doing that when they're 10 points up and the game's won. Why didn't he just laugh at Gleeson? Why didn't he say, go away, the game's over, go way back down the road? He didn't. I don't think Casey went to headbutt him. I don't think he did headbutt him. No. I think he went to go up to him, and Gleeson fell down, and now the fact that Gleeson missed an All-Ireland, I think Gleeson got up and said there was nothing in it or whatever, because Gleeson knows how that feels. I feel terrible for him. I can't see him getting off, because how can he prove he didn't do it?
No, that's it. And like that's it. Peter Casey will be disappointed in the fact that he allowed himself to be sucked into that, and I think that's the extent of it. But it wasn't enough, as far as I can see, it wasn't enough for Gleeson to go down. I was disappointed in that. He hit the deck, and straight away, I think that's where Peter Casey realised, oh geez, no, I'm in trouble here. He wasn't expecting him to hit the deck, and I don't think anybody was. And I was disappointed in that they went in, like you saw in the other matches. I mean, you see slow motions of some of the bits of play in the match, like Hughie Lawler's block in the match against Cork. The hurls came around and hit him in the face, and Hughie Lawler got up. That was a hurl in the face. Peter Casey didn't headbutt Gleeson with any such force, like you said, with two helmets on, that he should hit the ground. There's no way he should have hit the ground. And like Damien is saying, it's creeping in. Players before wouldn't have, but I think players now are looking at it going, I could get a lad sent off here, because they know the referees are in a position that, if there's intent and his head goes forward, he's going to send him. So I'm going to hit the deck. So I was disappointed in Gleeson that he hit the ground.
In Hegarty's defence, Damien, and I do accept your point that the game years ago, that he might not have gone down. He might have been surprised with it. But that game was very close at that time, and Hegarty's probably thinking, here, feck this lad. 15 versus 14 is a lot easier. The problem with Conor Gleeson was the game was over at that stage. There was no real need to stitch him up. Unless in Conor Gleeson's head he thought if they get someone sent off. But Gleeson was messing McKean Lynch the whole way through the game. It was at it, and they were poking each other. And
Gleeson isn't simple.
Yeah,
he done it with Joe Hannan as well. So he did. He's not simple, and as you said, he knows what it's like to not to play in an All Ireland final. So he does, and you're on about Hegarty. I'd been disappointed at being honest. A big, massive man, full of muscle. So he's like this. And then the truth of it is, and I'll compliment Kilkenny. That doesn't happen in Kilkenny. That's the truth now, and I compliment Brian Cody, and that's down with the tradition of the Kilkenny hurling team. They don't go down. Sometimes maybe they should go down a little bit more, to win maybe an easy free. But the Kilkenny boys don't go down, and that wouldn't happen in a Kilkenny match. But I was disappointed in Hegarty. Being honest, Jamie Barron isn't a dirty player. He got a belt, a little bit of a trip switch. No, hit your man, belt and down was this. But for Peter Casey, I really feel sorry for the young lad. I think if I was Limerick, I would definitely try getting to get massive coverage on what happened in that instant. And as you said, to show that he didn't headbutt. In my opinion, again, with the referee is, if not fully certain, and if it isn't clarified 100%, issue a yellow card. That is my opinion. Issue a yellow card. If you're not fully certain, don't issue a red card. Because it was his umpires. It was his umpires and his linesmen that made that decision, not him.
Yeah, it was the linesman. And if he gave the yellow again, nobody would have complained about that yellow for that. Anyways, we may get in and talk about the game here, lads. What about Waterford in the first quarter? Talk about laying down markers all over the field. Stephen Bennett was like a wrecking ball. He was knocking them out. I'd never seen Limerick being kind of physically fronted up to in that way.
This is what we said Waterford had to bring, and it was incredible for the amount of weeks on the trot that Waterford are going to come out of the blocks like this. And what I thought, and it's not to go back and go into a negative one, I would have loved to see another 10 minutes of it, only for the water break kind of, was a circuit breaker for that. But what Waterford came out with was unbelievable. And it was the best 18 minutes of hurling, the most intense 18 minutes, because Limerick were fighting hard to get physical as well. And there were great blocks and hooks. And, even the shoulder on Garrod Hegarty, was it Shane Bennett hit him the shoulder? Was it?
Over the sideline. And Stephen Bennett dropped him as well.
Oh,
both
yeah, that was it.
I think both Bennetts
got him. But the physicality was incredible. And in fairness, the ref let it on as well, which it was good, honest physicality going into it. And the atmosphere was unbelievable, but just watching it, we were sitting at home looking at it going, like, this is breathtaking stuff. It was just hell for leather the whole way. And look, in fairness to Waterford, they'd thrown everything at them. But like you said, it went in at half time and it was 4 points to 3. I couldn't believe it. I was going, for everything they've thrown at them, like the kitchen sink and everything else, it's 4 points to 3. Like, that just is a credit to Limerick that's what was being thrown at them, and they absorbed every bit of it and said, yep, go on, keep throwing it at us and we'll keep hurling.
Yeah, they absorbed it all, Damien. They took the hits. They stuck to their game plan. The water break definitely helped them. They took maybe 2 minutes of a water break in a huddle with Kylie in the middle, which is completely wrong, and it shouldn't be. You shouldn't be able to get that break of a managerial chat.
And the whiteboard.
And the whiteboard. Yeah. So, that is not. How can Croke Park look at that and accept and not fine Limerick? I don't want to single out Limerick only because they're all doing it. This is meant to be a quick water break and you're back on the field, and it's completely messing up momentum. It messed up Waterford. But after the water break, Damien, when Limerick got to 6 in a row, the game was pretty much over at that stage.
Yeah, game was over. I would agree with you. And I love up to the water break, I absolutely love the intensity of the whole game. I love the way the Waterford lads really got stuck into Limerick, and they gave it absolutely everything. So did Aaron Glenn, I suppose. He put a ball over the bar. He should have put the ball in the back of the net. So Waterford gave it everything. I have a soft spot for Waterford hurling. When I was growing up, I used to love watching the Waterford lads hurling with the Ken McGraths and the Dan Shanahans and all these lads. But once the second period came, Limerick just drove on. They just drove on and they showed their dominance. Flanagan was very, very powerful in that. Aaron Gillan won 5, so he did. Keane Lynch 3 points. Tom Morrissey 5 points, Seamus Flanagan 4 points. These are all their main forwards now at the moment. But the truth of it was, Colin, with the system that Waterford are playing with numbers back and all that sort of stuff, I don't think you'll ever win a game if you're only playing one man in the full forward line.
Yeah.
And Hutchison was up there on his own, especially in the second half for a lot of it, until they put Jamie Barron inside in the full forward line. But I could never see Waterford winning the game after the first water break.
No, he did. He actually did very well, Barron, when he went in. There's nothing he can't do. But I do agree. Like, I watching the game, very frustrated. Like, Hutchinson's inside. Now, this worked against Galway and Tip because Waterford run them. They had the fitness and the youth and the speed to run the shit out of them in the middle and get ball in. What very noticeable for me is that if Limerick were under any pressure, they could give one pass and then bang, because Flanagan and Gillan stay on the edge of the 2 boxes. Casey will stand around front of them. They have huge targets to aim at. They always have an out ball, and it looks like a good ball because one of the lads is breaking out to it, and they know that huge area doesn't have to be perfect. I'm launching that diagonal that way, and that's my out. But when Waterford were under pressure, they had no out ball.
No.
They had to get free and give a perfect ball in. And that's the difference, because Limerick can do the running game and they can run the ball the whole way up the field, which Waterford like to do. But Limerick have that out when when that savage pressure's on them. They'll just stick it into a corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you saw, like, when Waterford tried to force that issue there in the second half and you looked at it, Limerick had men back. Limerick were sitting back, and it's like what Damien was saying that Hughie Lawler was exposed in the Cork match. When you looked up and Waterford were under pressure, they were trying to get the ball up the pitch, Limerick players were still sitting back in their positions, and they had an abundance of players.
Still had it out the field.
Still had it. And what they were able to do was once they got that ball out, landed down, Desi Hutchinson was inside on his own. They slowly worked it out. They were able to get their score from a little bit out the pitch. Again, then Waterford had to push up, and kind of fight in that middle third. And once they did push up, then you had Flanagan, and it was like just back and forth. They were just, once they pushed up, once Waterford pushed up a small bit, Limerick played the long ball in. Once Waterford went back, Limerick worked it up and tapped it over the bar.
Yeah.
And Paul, it's like Hannan. I find it's like Hannan doesn't move out of the centre back position.
No.
And when he gets the ball, he just gives the simplest little hand passes out to his half backs or out to his midfielders. He just does everything so simple. He is the main man, we'll say, in that back line to glues it all together. But he doesn't move out of the number 6 channel. it's hilarious, but it's so effective.
Yeah, it's I almost, and it's not to bring we often hear this thing of the quarterback type thing. Like if you look, we always talk of the players around Declan Hannan, of, you know, Kyle Hayes bombing up the line, and Diarmaid Burns, and you've Keane Lynch, and all these fancy players. And sometimes, you know, if you're neutral, maybe looking at it and you don't watch hurling, say, what's that fella in the middle doing? For me, like Damien is saying, he's calling it. He's telling everybody, like, he's the captain for a reason, and he controls it. I genuinely think he controls it really well. I think we can get distracted by, you know, the physicality of Limerick and what they do and they're running. Declan Hannan is there for a reason, and he's there because I think he knows how to call it. He knows they're all smart players. They know how to play the game. But what he does in the middle, nothing fancy. Gets the ball, pops it out, talks to players. Where are we going? What are we doing? And he controls the whole thing. And I don't know, do we ever talk about it, the genius of that?
Well, we've actually been talking about him as a weak link. Well, I have, and I'm driving this. I'm like, why are we not targeting that? Because he doesn't mark, you know. And
well, John Kiely doesn't have weak links, and we've said this before. Like, John Kiely can drop Aaron Gillan, not start him. You know, he can put off Seamus Flanagan. He can bring on someone else. Yeah. John Kiely's cutthroat. If you're not, you know, he's not carrying anybody in that team. We talked about the full back line of, you know, they have Barry Nash, you know, they have Casey there at full back line, they have Morrissey, they have Sean Finn, they have Richie English, they have an abundance of backs. Declan Hannan isn't there for any particular reason to go up and lift a cup. He's there for a reason, you know, and if there's one thing that he's there for, it is control in that back line. And sure, the man was probably the greatest hurler coming out of Limerick when underage. We're talking about him. He's there for a reason, and John Kiely doesn't carry anyone.
No, he definitely doesn't.
But as well, Paul, Declan Hannan, right? As you said, number 6. But Declan Hannan, and it showed it, Tip basically found a weakness in him, right? Where they scored a world of scores in the first half, right? Well, we cannot forget William O'Donoghue and Darragh O'Donovan. I'm telling you, them two players, I don't think were spoken about enough regarding the comeback against Tipperary. And them two midfielders are the focal point behind your man allowed to sit back. So he's Hannan. And I can't praise that William O'Donoghue and Darragh O'Donovan enough. Jeez, they're some workers. Jeez, the work rate that them two boys get into. They tell me that William O'Donoghue loves hitting lads. Loves hitting challenges, getting stuck into rooks. Every time you can see it, they're mad for work, them two lads. And just sometimes we'll all talk about the forwards and all that, but I just think them two deserve a huge amount of credit. In particular, Darragh O'Donovan, the last day, I thought he had a super game.
Yeah, O'Donovan, obviously William O'Donoghue, and Hegarty, Lynch and Tom Morrissey, their appetite for work allows these lads stay in their positions, obviously. And I mean, I felt sorry for Desi Hutchinson though. Like, not only has he marked Sean Finn, who's by far the best cornerback I think in the game at the moment, the speed of him, the strength of him, everything. Yeah. Hutchinson could barely get away from him on his own. If he was left one-on-one, that would have been a great battle. But Hannan was always there, and Nash could be down there too. Could be 3-on-1. Like, you've no game plan then, Paul, really, because the lads out the field, because of the savage work rate of all these lads we just named, they couldn't really get free to give good head-up ball. And when they could, where was their target? Yeah,
where was their target? And the luxury for that, and I know it being a cornerback, once you see protection all around you, you're going, I can stand on this fella's heels now because he has nowhere to go. The pressure's on him. Now, often we traditionally say, oh, you have to be touch tight. You do. But when you have acres of space in front of you, which ideally would be in the situation Desi Hutchinson would have wanted. Well, now Sean Finn has to play it a small bit different because Desi Hutchinson has loads of room to run into. But once he looks around and he sees this wall of defence and Desi Hutchinson's going, where am I going to get the ball from here? Sean Finn can just stand on top of him and go, land the ball down. And who's going to beat Sean Finn for physicality? Nobody's going to beat him. Who's going to beat him? And even, you just see him, he just glances around, flicks the ball away, gets it, pops it out, back onto the man. I mean, you wouldn't envy Desi Hutchinson. What could he do? He could do nothing.
Desperate day at the office. And in fairness, they did change it. I think it was after the Gillan goal, because they rallied a bit, Damien, without ever looking. It reminded me of Dublin's rally against Cork, where you're still not believing the rally. They're just, they're after getting 3 in a row.
They actually went with a 2-man full forward line nearly for the last 15. Ozzy Gleason went in full forward and Jamie Barron went in full forward. So they kind of started hitting ball route one, and Ozzy caught a couple of balls and he threw over the bar and he went for a couple of goals. And Jamie Barron got a couple of points and he went for a couple of goals. And Quaid pulled off a couple of great saves. I really like that Quaid as a goalkeeper. I think he's so calm, he's so natural. There's no excitement, there's no airs or graces or dramas about him. He's a super goalie. But as I just said to you, Colin, Waterford were getting the ball and they were driving it up the field, and as you said, we had the Declan Hannans and these boys holding their positions, and it was impossible for Hutchinson. You nearly feel sorry for him. But after the water break, I could never see Waterford win the game. Yeah, they made a little bit of a comeback there in the last quarters. They were never going to win the game.
Yeah, they were actually leaving 3, and Stephen Bennett was in with them. They kind of changed their shape completely, you know, and like they kind of had to do it. It wasn't working. Jack Prendergast, Peter Hogan, we talked about them a lot last Thursday. Just
taken off.
Yeah, just weren't. The running game against Limerick is difficult because Limerick don't shirk the work rate, and they're monsters.
Yeah.
And they're just, you think you're fit, they're fitter.
Yeah, they're fitter, and they clog up that area. You know, that area that we were looking at, Horgan and Prendergast running through. I mean, you don't run through that against Limerick. And what I think is a great thing, if you see the end view, let's say, of the match, and when there's puckouts coming, let's say, from the opposing team and Limerick are defending it, their hurls are up, they're standing, they're looking. And where the ball is going, like you just see this convergence of players. They're just converge on the area, running in. And like you said, once you get there, if you're, let's say, Prendergast or whatever, you get there, and you have Darragh O'Donovan or you have William O'Donoghue coming in on top of you, and then you have Cian Lynch flicking the ball around, or then you have Kyle Hayes. Where do you go? You know, where do you go? And like you said,
no
they've no out ball.
Yeah, the Limerick middle 8, the size of them are absolutely incredible. Like, I'm serious. Have a look. Like, Cian Lynch is probably the smallest of them out of the middle 8. Like, they're massive men, and they're all mad for work.
Yeah, and Cian Lynch is fond of a bench press, the chest sticking out of his jersey. So, like, I mean, he's not that tall, but he could be the strongest of them.
Cian Lynch is probably 5'10", 5'11". I mean, it's just, I think the lads around him, you're standing beside your old Hegarty and Tom Morrissey. I mean, lots of lads that look small around that. So he's not a small man. Do you know, he's not a small man. He's fit, he's well able to move, and he's able to do it. But, like, you know, even Tom Morrissey, we haven't even mentioned Tom Morrissey. You know, the work rate out of him, up and down the line, gets the ball. He seems like he has 2 or 3 yards of space the whole time.
5 points from play.
5 points from play. Do you know, and has he been overly mentioned, you know, in general with the coverage after the match? He just pops up 5 points from play. Good day's work off the pitch, done. Happy days.
Yeah, you know? I was going to mention him in performance of the weekend, but you've jumped ahead of me there.
I knew you were going to do that. I got your notes before the show.
But the thing about it is, like, I mean, you look at the Waterford running game and it didn't work, and we kind of thought it might be a numbers game, and if Limerick are leaving lads back, Waterford have more men. It didn't transpire like that. Limerick have you in so many ways. It's just very difficult. I think there was a stat on the puckouts. Waterford won 1 of 11 long puckouts. Jesus, like Jack Fagan, like, he's good in the air, but he's not able for Kyle Hayes. Now, that's 2 matches. At least last year's All-Ireland and this year, he's just ineffectual in the game. You know, like, it's very hard to see how Waterford can trouble Limerick with that game plan.
It is, yeah, and I really think that any team who's going to try and trouble Limerick, you're going to have to physically one-on-one match up with them very well in terms of being able to dominate your position. Like you said, unfortunately, you know, sometimes we can get complicated into different systems and different things, but you have to be able to win that battle one-on-one with your own man. And, like, if that's Kyle Hayes, who's 6'5" or whatever he is, and you need someone physically who's able to stand in on top of him. And I'm not, like, that's not easy done. It's not easy done. And I just think that dominance that they have, not saying they rely on their physicality, but the fact that they're so physical in every position. I mean, how it's so tough for one player to try and dominate that position. And if he's not winning it, that's a point for Limerick. You know, they're winning that position. And all over the pitch, they just have this physical battle won, which is a huge thing for Limerick. And that's before they even get down to the skill of the players. Yeah,
and like, even the 2 lads, you're talking about the physical lads, the 2 lads, Gleason and Flanagan, are huge men too. And they're able to win draw ball and score. So, like, I mean, even if you're hitting a space, you can be sure they're out in front, because often when you're marking a big man, it's hard to get out around. You know what I mean? Get out around. You almost let him on in front of you or whatever, do you, Paul? Like, I mean, if you're marking a fella who would be as physical as Flanagan and Gleason.
Yeah. Well,
unless you're Conor Prunty, obviously.
Unless you're Conor Prunty, yeah. I suppose, like, you're trying to win the foot race with him, because, like we said, they had that space in front of him, and I would encounter it with the likes of Shane McCallan and stuff. You're sprinting out, but when you're getting there, if you're marking let's say a corner forward or a full forward who wouldn't be as physical, when you run out there, it's literally, you can get into hurling and get a flick. But these boys, once they get out there, they spread themselves and the shoulders go out. And then, so the next time you're going out for that 50-50 ball, you're kind of saying, well, I can't be standing beside him because he's going to let it break through. He'll put the arm out, let the ball break through, and now he's running onto it. And that's when you see the cornerbacks or the fullbacks standing that yard behind him. And now they're a yard behind him, it's the place you don't want to be. You want to be out in front winning the ball. So their physicality allows them that if you arrive to the ball with them and you're standing beside them, they put out the shoulders, they put the arm out, they let the ball break through, they catch it, they do whatever. So now you have to change your tact. And what's your tact? Playing from behind? Sure, that's not the place to play the forward.
Just the natural strength of them makes you do that. Like, I mean, Austin Gleason, Damien, like, he had 3 shots at goal. 3 of them were half chances, probably at best. The first one was definitely not on. He went for it anyway. They spoke before the game. You know, everybody knew they needed goals. he caught a brilliant puck out and ran in. I thought maybe that was his best chance of one. None of the three were struck with huge power.
No, they weren't. And for Waterford to win with the Liam Cahill game plan, they needed to score goals. And Ozzy was inside, and he did. He even one stage he took a shot in the first half for a goal, and like I don't think there was ever a goal chance on. It was like he was taking his point. He was a long way out. Like he scored 4 points, so he did 3 from play, and he got the long range free. So he did, but I suppose he caught one ball there, and would say very close into the game, and he snatched it over the bar. So he did, but no, for Waterford to have beaten Limerick and to really trouble them, they needed to score goals, because they have so many players back and behind the ball, and they're trying that running game. But as I said to you, Nicky Quaid did a fine game against I did. Jamie Barron was probably the closest shot for them to score a goal, and it ricocheted off Quaid's helmet. So they put, they needed to score goals, and they didn't get them.
No, they definitely didn't get them. Like, I mean, Gleason can be a little bit frustrating when you're at the game watching him, because for 2 or 3 minutes he could be in beside Hutchinson, then he's out into midfield, and then he's in the half hour. He's I don't know, is it the instruction, or is he told that you have a free role? I think sometimes when you're moving around too much, the game could pass you by. Instead of, if you have, remember when you'd be too eager and you're running everywhere. Like, that was actually a feature of TJ Reid's, how he gets on the ball so much. He lands on it. There's no breaking ball that he's not near. But anyway, that wasn't really Austin. Austin was more moving down, hoping the ball's hitting his direction. Yeah. And it was, I don't know.
I don't know what the guidance is for Austin Gleeson in that situation. I don't know. Like, oftentimes I'd see players, and Brian would have done it over the years with us, with, let's say, Owen Larkin, say start him corner forward, but Owen, wherever you think you go, wherever you think you can do a bit of damage, or wherever you see the ball on you go. Is that the same thing with Austin Gleeson, where they're saying, listen, Austin, you're a good enough player, you can play anywhere on the pitch, you go yourself? Or is it a kind of a case that what I think kind of could be happening would be, let's say there's ball going into full forward line, it's not sticking, we'll get Austin in there, but now there's not enough ball coming back in when Austin's actually in there, we'll bring him back to midfield, pull him. I could be wrong in saying that, but it seems to be because, like you said, there's times where the game passes him by that and I don't think it's his own fault. I think it's he's put out midfield, he's put out wing forward, he goes in, and sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't. But like you said the other day, they seemed to move him and he wasn't, but like he took shots as well. The one he went for the goal, I saw Joe Canning score one against us there a few years ago in 2012, it was in the Leinster final. But I don't, like, where he took the shot from, I was kind of saying, you can't be taking a shot from goal from there, not Nicky Quaid. Nicky Quaid will nearly catch that, never mind stop it. But yeah, there was a few things with him. He just seemed a small bit off the boil the other day. But again, it goes back to what you're saying. What's the guidance? What's he being told to do? Is he being told free roll on you go, or is he being told to go into these positions? Yeah, it's an interesting one. I suppose at the end, Liam Cahill wasn't too, critical of his team, or he just accepted. He says overall just a powerful display from Limerick, really physically commanding again, really good awareness of what they bring as a team, where every player needs to be, executed their usual plan of holding possession and being able to find the right man at the right time, and summed it up perfectly there, Damien. Like, I mean, when you look back, Waterford, like, they'll play Limerick 10 times and they'll lose at least 9 of them. The reality is, the way they're playing at the moment, unless they get a few players back, they might be able to leave some more forwards up, whatever. Waterford have had a brilliant year, and they've lost now 2 years in a row to a brilliant Limerick team. They've gotten to an All-Ireland final and an All-Ireland semi-final. There's lots of teams would be envious of where, you wouldn't want to be too critical of Waterford. I don't think there's anything they could have done really on Saturday.
No, I think Liam Cahill and his management team, Beavens, from Toomevara, I think they've done a great job. Waterford didn't win a championship match in 2 years, so they didn't, like it, which is hard to believe when you think of it. And the big challenge that Liam Cahill had, that Waterford team, in my opinion, were nearly brainwashed, right? Brainwashed in regards that they were realistically only playing with roughly about 2 to 3 forwards. Everyone else was back the field, playing this big sweeper role. And Cahill brought them back to playing 15 on 15. Now, maybe he brought back a sweeper, but at least he had forwards up front to try score. And I think Cahill has really improved them, along with Beavens there with him like this. And he wasn't going to be critical of them. I think they gave a great display again this year. They got to an All-Ireland final last year, got to an All-Ireland semi-final this year, beat Galway, who everyone thought were going to be the only ones that might give Limerick a run for it like this. But I've been impressed with Liam Cahill. It should, like, if we call a spade, he thought he had the tip job got a couple of years ago, and it didn't work out. And I still think he'd be mad to get the tip job, even though he said he wouldn't leave he wouldn't leave the Waterford job. But I think if the tip job presents itself, he'll take it. Simple as that. And he's proven himself as a very fine coach, and he takes no nonsense. I'd say he has no problem dropping lads if he does go into the tip panel. But that's his ultimate goal. His ultimate goal is the tip man, and he wants to be the manager of the tip senior hurlers. And I think if he gets an opportunity, he will take that job, and he will walk away from Waterford and be able to walk away with his head held high, saying that he's done a fine job down there.
Yeah, he'd be very hard to replace if that's what does happen. Performance of the weekend, so lads, before we finish up, I'll give you a short list here, lads. Seamus Flanagan, I thought, when the game was 4-4 after 20 minutes, he was a big part of that 6 in a row. I think he got 2 of them, and he was, looking dangerous. Kyle Hayes dominated the whole game. Like, even the flick at Patrick Curran at the end, he never stopped. Dominated Jack Fagan. And this is without any of his fancy stuff of, it was just a solid defensive kind of performance. And I've Tom Morrissey down here, who we spoke about, seems to get on the move on the end. How is he always free?
Yeah.
I want to do a player cam on him, but you miss everything else.
You miss everything else, yeah.
Conor Prunty, I think. Sky gave the man of the match to Gleason. I thought Prunty gave Gleason all he wanted of it, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, you named a few players there that I thought probably did a small bit more. Not to say, sure, obviously, Gleason had a great game, but, Prunty had a great game against him, and deserves great credit for that. But look, again, yeah, I like you said, Kyle Hayes is a great call for that, just because, like we said, we're probably expecting him to score this mad goal that he's going to score from 65 yards out, running in soloing. What he does, all the other things, the block he got was absolutely brilliant. Didn't take his eye off the ball, broke it down, and there was another stage as well where I saw him where I think it was maybe at that flick he broke down the ball and the ball worked itself out to midfield. Limerick got a free at midfield, but Kyle Hayes was standing beside the man who got fouled at this stage. But Kyle Hayes was the man who broke the ball down inside in his own 14. He just turned around, and the athleticism of him to sprint out the pitch. And we were talking about free in for Limerick, and when we're looking at the free in, here was Kyle Hayes out beside him. And I just said, that's absolutely incredible. That, how does he do this? How could he? So for me anyway, Kyle Hayes had a fantastic game.
Yeah, I'd nearly go with Kyle Hayes, Damien. The crowd are all at it when you're at the match. He gets a ball in a bit of space, and there's almost, there's an expectation he's off. Yeah. And he fought the urge to overdo it, because after what he did the last 2 games, I thought this showed a lot of maturity from him. He could easily get his head in the clouds and go, look, every time I get it now, that's what the crowd want, that's what I'm good at, and everyone will be talking about me. He didn't. He gave the diagonal balls. He went back to kind of, he stuck with the kind of game plan without running away with himself. I don't know. I just thought that showed a lot of maturity.
Yeah, I know. And my cousin, sure, he's he's a brilliant player. Simple as that. And not many players either, lads, can go from centre forward back to wing back and just butter on toast stuff. Just fill in there he was. And the truth of it is, that has nearly made this Limerick team, that him going back, wing back. It has allowed Keane Lynch to go to centre forward, orchestrating stuff. It allowed Peter Casey to come into the team, Seamus Flanagan as well, it was a big call that time last year by Kylie putting them back there, but by jeez has it worked. The Kilkenny half back line is unbelievable. Lord, the height of the 3 of them. Yeah. That, and the middle 8 is, but they're just a super team.
Yeah, Limerick half back line. You're getting obsessed with the Kilkenny team. You played against. Right, performance of the weekend, lads. We've gone way over time, I'm sure, today. There was so much to talk about. I think we'll give it to Kyle Hayes. We'll go a little bit left field and give it to him for a brilliant all-round performance, and to not get sucked into the hype of how brilliant he is, potentially running with the ball and going forward. So congratulations to him. Right, that's it. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll do a show for you guys. No matches next weekend, but we'll talk to you all on Thursday anyways. Good luck.